Hey, good evening, everybody. Welcome to this week's episode of Paranormal Lens. I am Jamie Widener, one of your hosts, along with wherever that guy is, Chad Thomas. My left, my right, I don't know. I see him, but he's actually somewhere else anyway. So, hey, Chad, what's going on, buddy?
Hey, Jamie, how are you? I'm good.
Good, good. And special guest tonight, Jerry and Melissa Keller. Welcome back to the program, guys.
Hi.
And a cat.
And the cat.
Yes.
What's the cat's name?
The girl. That's JOTT-NYX.
Okay. I thought you said her name was the girl. I'm like, that sounds appropriate.
No, that's the girl.
That's
the
the
boy's hiding from the thunderstorms.
Oh, yeah. We had something tonight, didn't we? Holy cow.
We did.
Like 6 gallons of rain fell on 5 minutes.
I was worried that the whole power issue and,
Well, yeah. I have a little bit of, like, a couple branches came down the yard, and I thought, oh, great. Once I started seeing stuff fall, I'm like, there goes my electric, but made it.
Yeah.
So it's meant to be. So, whew. Well, those of us who don't know us, as we are trying something different tonight, this episode will be season 2, episode 1 for us. There is a whole nother season behind us of 60, how many episodes, Chad? 60 something?
62, I think.
62, 63 episodes, about a year's worth, a weekly episode, episodic program that we are. What we're going to do is one of us picks a topic. There's Jim. Hey, Jim. One of us is then the knowledge expert of that topic. The other one doesn't know much about it or hasn't been cued about it. And then we will go through that topic. And at the end, we'll decide paranormal or not, or maybe so. So we go, yes, no, maybe so. So tonight, though, is a special episode because we have Jerry and Melissa with us. And we are all members of JOTT-NYX Paranormal, a group of paranormal investigators in the Lancaster County, South Central Pennsylvania region. We are the host team at a location in Mount Joy, PA called Booby's Brewery. And that if you're going to Google that, it's Bubes. Do not spell it the other way. You will get other things. It's not us. It's things that may not be appropriate. So, but with that, before that, when we've been there for 3 full years now. Prior to that, we were the host team and the resident team at a location called the Haldeman Mansion in Bainbridge, PA. And that's what we're here to talk about tonight. So it's an opportunity that I've had to investigate a couple dozen times. I've lost track, honestly. I want to say 100, but it's probably not that high, but it's certainly not low either. Jerry and Melissa, you guys live there, literally on the property. So, and Chad, sorry to say you didn't get with us before we weren't there anymore.
I've never been there. Yeah.
Yeah, it's not our choice. There was a change in direction with the Preservation Society. So, with that though, it seems like the perfect stepping point to come forward this new season. And let's explore the Haldeman Mansion. What do you think?
Sounds good to me.
Okay. So here's just a quick visual for those watching us. It is a colonial era home. And going back to somewhere in the late 1700s, early 1800s in that window. I'll get to that in a moment. And then the front here, and this is what you can't see, what is behind the camera, is facing the Susquehanna River. So we are literally in the middle of South Central PA, right along the banks of the mighty Susquehanna. The land, though, goes back much longer than the Haldemans being here. And that's where I want to start the history of all of this. And there's a little bit to walk through, so bear with me. I gotta read a lot. So, but circa the 1200s to 1550, archaeological research has revealed a distinct woodland culture that thrived in the lower Susquehanna Valley in the late woodland period from approximately AD 1200 to AD 1550. These early residents of the Susquehanna River's banks and territory further inland are known as the Shanks Ferry Indians. They got their name from the location of their archaeological discovery in the 1950s. Shanks Ferry Indians generally lived in small hamlets along the river and inland along the river's main tributaries. So moving ahead a little bit, about 1500, this is thought to be the approximate time a small group of Shanks Ferry people built and occupied a small stockaded village near the mouth of the Conoy Creek. It may have been inhabited until about 1550, so about 50 years. The Haldeman Mansion is located within the footprint of that stockade. Moving ahead a little bit more, about 1575, the Susquehannock Indians, another tribe, began to aggressively replace the established Shanks Ferry Indians in the lower Susquehanna River Valley. The tribe's first contact with European settlers came in 1608 when Captain John Smith, we know John Smith from other places in history, explored the Chesapeake Bay, and met 60 Susquehannock warriors. European contact grew substantially, and then by the 1640s, the Susquehannocks put them in an advantageous position as participants in the booming fur trade. So this was our area now, which is like agricultural and suburban kind of stuff. It was all woodland back in the day, and the local indigenous people were all over the area in settlements. The Europeans, of course, are coming and changing things. So by the 1650s, the Susquehannocks found themselves surrounded by enemies. The Iroquois to the north and the increasing European pressure from the south, folks moving up the Chesapeake Bay as it's a tributary from the Susquehanna. The power of the Susquehannock Indians suffered after a smallpox epidemic decimated the tribe, and by the 1670s, a few remaining Susquehannocks fled to a new home in Maryland or were absorbed into the Iroquois tribe. So there's been transition on this land very early on. About 1718, the local Kanoi Indians established a Kanoi Indian town on a prominent point of land to the south side of the Kanoi Creek, a short distance from its mouth, which would be to the left of this picture that you're seeing. And in 1729, Lancaster County formed from Chester County, the county that we sit in now was formed then. And then on top of that, Donegal Township was created and became the local administrative territory covering present-day Locust Grove Estate, which is the marketing name now for the Haldeman Mansion. And we'll get to that at the end of some of this. So we start to look now from native populations inhabiting the land to starting to become settled by Europeans and the influx of folks moving from the south and east to the west and north. So first, John Galbraith Jr. Takes out a landmark for 440 acres and allowances from the William Penn family that spans the mouth of the Kanoi Creek and borders on the Susquehanna River. The Kanois moved north then, vacating the village at the mouth of the Kanoi Creek. That's in 1743. So we're moving up slowly through history here. And in 1784, actually on April 13th, which eventually will become my birthday many years later, a gentleman named Melicor Brenneman conveys to John Haldeman, the first Haldeman in this mix, 2 tracts of land at the south side of the Locust Grove Estate, where it is currently now. John Haldeman erected a grist mill near the mouth of the Kanoi Creek and acquired a large estate. And he also erected a distillery. So he's diversifying, trying to make some money. The grist mill is grinding product down, flour, other things, into mill, from the mill into grain, and therefore something that is more consumable, and selling it. And the distillery, of course, helps you wash whatever you make with it down. They also built extensive pens with next to the distillery for the fattening of swine on the refuse grain from the distilling process. So they waste not, want not in this process as well. In 1804, from 1804 to 1813, John Haldeman's oldest son, John Brenneman Haldeman, moves to the Locust Grove Estate and to assume responsibility for its operations. His father intended him to be the future family patriarch, but John decides he prefers farming and returns to the Haldeman family homestead, which is a bit to the south. His brother Henry Haldeman takes over the operations. Also, a little bit further back, though, in 1811, a federal-style addition to the Haldeman Mansion is completed. Go to the next slide. You see some of that here on the back half of the house. Oops, there was 2 slides there. Sorry, what happened? I apologize. Yeah, well, you must have missed. I missed something there. I'm so sorry, guys. But the second half of the house, if you will, in the back, has an annex that is basically a big square going back, and then just block style. And that's basically what the federal style is, just that big kind of block, boring building. For the front, and the colonial style has more of a flair to it, with the porch and the extras. So here's where things get a little interesting. On August 12th of 1812, Professor Samuel Stamen Haldeman, a noted scientist, author, and naturalist, was born to Henry Haldeman and his wife Frances Stamen Haldeman at the house. And in 1813, Bainbridge, the place where this property now exists, was formerly founded by Henry and John B. Haldeman. So now we have a place, we have a location, we have a name, we have kind of a legacy start. In 1849, Henry Haldeman granted to his son Cyrus Haldeman all the estate on which I now reside, containing about 170 acres, more or less, with all the tools and fixtures belonging to the mill and the distillery. So we went from having like a tract of land that was pretty small with just a house and the grist mill and distillery now to up over 170 acres. That's quite a spread. They've added on and added on. So you're seeing here that the Haldemans have become affluent. They've amassed some wealth. The mill distillery, all the stuff that they're doing on the property has gained them wealth, and they're allowing that to expand their property bigger and more. So John Haldeman and Cyrus Haldeman announced sales of their adjoining properties, including Locust Grove Mansion, grist mill and distillery in 1852. And the reason for it is basically they just don't want to run it anymore. So Cyrus Haldeman of Kenoi Township and his wife Elizabeth granted to Horace Haldeman of the United States Army for the sum of $30,000 all that contained in the mill, the still house, and the souche, which is the term for the grainage, and a tract of land known as the Locust Grove Estate, containing 189 acres and 40 perches neat measure. So moving ahead a little bit further in time, Horace and his wife granted to John Haldeman Smith of Kenoi Township all the Sturton Mill, Stillhouse, Masouche, and tract of lands known as Locust Grove Estate, and in the same tract, basically, extensive of what lies between the railroad and the river as well. So we're seeing transitions, but they're staying within the family. And that's interesting because a generational turn, right? We know as investigators at this property that there were generations of Haldemans here. And it's interesting because, it's like any property at the time. It wasn't like, you're going out to Zillow and looking for a house to buy. You had a house, and this is the house that your family was raised in all through the generations. You just stayed there. Because there weren't many other properties around for that matter. You had to build your home. And this is a well-established property. One of the first deaths in the property happened in 1880, where Samuel Haldeman died of a heart attack. Lloyd Mifflin, who is somewhat of a celebrity in our area, an artist of landscape and portraiture, also known as America's greatest sonneteer, wrote a sonnet in his memory and read it at his funeral. A few owners and iterations of the property go by, including the house being divided into apartments. And guys, I don't know if you know this, but my Aunt Nell used to live in the house. I think I mentioned that before, but unfortunately she passed before I knew that. She was a great aunt for that matter. So she is no longer with us, but I would have loved to have had to sit down with her. And anytime you would have sat down with her, it would have been a Miller Lite with you as well, as she was known to do. So that would have been some fun stories of what she could have told us. But back to 1967, a group of interested local citizens formed what's called the Haldeman Society to help preserve and prevent further deterioration of the historic Haldeman Mansion and the adjoining structures. Moving forward to 1977, the Locust Grove, the Haldeman Mansion property, was placed on the National Register of Historic Places. The U.S. Department of Interior's National Park Service assigned broad preservation significance to the property, spanning the American history, architecture, archaeologically, and science category. This national status includes the Haldeman Mansion, the Summer Kitchen, Kenoi Town, and the cemetery parts of, and the Shanksbury Village, all in this general region. Moving forward to 2022, the U.S. Department of Interior's National Park Service recognized the Locust Grove Native American Archaeological District, encompassing Locust Grove Estate and 3 neighboring properties, by placing them on the National Register of Historic Places. So it is now a protected location, from change, and it's just very much like what we deal with where we are now. It's on the registry, so the building is protected. And also, it's challenging then some of the renovations you can do. We have to kind of keep things in the spirit of the original architecture and style of the property. So no one's going to change the federal style to like Art Deco or something crazy. So that's crazy, but it's way different than what it looks like as it was originally. So it's a lot of history, right? A lot of stuff happened here. And then my point earlier is it's the same, is that there was just generation after generation after generation of Haldemans that came through the property. Eventually, like anything else, the line stopped. Someone wasn't interested anymore. And the property left the family line. And then, interesting things happened where it was subdivided into apartments. And, being in the building, we've seen where walls used to be, right? We can kind of tell that stuff that it would have been. It was an interesting thing. I think it's more of a single room occupancy setting where there was like a hall bathroom and everybody had a room that they could use. They kept their possessions in, but even still something uniquely different than it would have been. And it's a huge house with many, many bedrooms. So, trying to maintain that for a family would have been extensive as far as cost. So it makes sense that it was trying to keep it open and keep it up, but doing something a little bit more creative. We know about creative bookkeeping from another place we get to go to.
We do.
So you mean how many bedrooms was it? Do you know offhand?
Yeah, so it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, I think 6 total.
Okay.
That's with the addition. On the original, it would have been
Right.
four. There's
So-
7. Yeah.
So, and this show that section that you were talking about.
Yep, it does there. That's the addition to the back. What you're looking at is then off to the left is a bit of another roof line there. That would be the summer kitchen, which would have been where obviously the days like this couple of weeks we've had of 90 plus degrees. You don't want to cook inside, especially when you have to light a fire and have things going all day. You certainly wouldn't want that in your house in the summer with all the other heat and humidity issues. Plus, you're 100 yards or so off the river, so it's already humid to begin with when the warm weather hits.
Yep.
And then you can also have storage out there too. So there is a kitchen inside the house as well. The hearth is still there and all the good stuff too. It's amazing, a large hearth, but with relativeness, you had it. Yeah, it's really cool. So we're not here for history, right? I mean, history matters, and I started with the Native American history in the front of it because that matters to what we're going to talk about. It plays into what we're going to, as paranormal investigators, what we experienced while there. It matters that, knowing the lineage of the Haldemans because they're there, right? Kind of thing. So I'm going to go through my experience in the 2 years that we got to investigate there on the regular. And I'd love for you guys to add color and extra to it as we go. We're just going to kind of walk through the house on a tour. So in Jacob's room first, we're going up the stairs, in the house, up the stairs to the second floor. And right across from the landing of the stairwell is a bedroom that we would consider Jacob's room. For me, what I found immediately is every time we shut the door to the foyer in the hall there, it would find itself opening after a couple minutes. And
Yes.
I don't know how many times and how many hours probably we spent investigating this, trying to communicate and engage and everything. But what we found was, unfortunately, it's an unlevel door frame, right? So it didn't lead to a whole lot as far as something that's actual paranormal. But the point I want to make with this is, we saw something phenomenal happening at first, and with that, we didn't just say it's haunted, right? There's a ghost here. Look, the door's opening. We took the time. We kept looking at it. We kept working it, and eventually we kind of realized that and a lot of this house is the front of the house is very old. The original structure is way back when. So the door frames are off a little bit. The floors are certainly off a bit. You get a bit of a fun house effect walking through some of the rooms because of the alumnus of the house, the settlement through the years. And this is one of those cases where it's an old lock and tackle door, so the latch just wouldn't hold. And the weight of the door being wood and metal brackets and hinges on it would just gravity would pull it forward because that's where the room went. It was a little disappointing, but also it's what paranormal investigators do. We just don't say it's haunted. There's a ghost there. We bless it. We followed it all the way through, and we found a logical explanation that we could repeat over and over again once we realized what it was. It made sense. But that takes us to the room to the left, which is the master bedroom. And this is clearly the master bedroom because it's its own fireplace. It's the largest bedroom. It's got 3 entrances, one from the hallway and one from each of the other bedrooms. This room to me was very interesting because when we were, this hold it.
No. Are you going to tell your story? Your first experience there? Okay.
I don't know. I'm just going to tell you a story. So there's a couple experiences in this space. We'll get to some of it now, so maybe a little later with something else. But in this room, we were all in the room, and we were trying to coax Jacob from his room into the master bedroom. And I had this thought to say to him, it's okay. You can come in here. Your parents aren't here now. When I was a kid, and I can't speak for everybody else, but I did this. When my folks weren't home, I would go in the room and I would jump on the bed because it was the biggest, nicest one in the house, right? They had the queen size bed and I had the twin bed, So I would go in there and do backflips and stuff. So, but I said, come on in. It's cool. They're not here. No one's going to tell on you. And in the moment, nothing. But after, of course, going back and listening to audio, we had a very clear EVP that said, yes, they are. To the response of saying, it's okay, they're not here.
Interesting.
So, chilling, to hear that. And in a young sounding voice as well. Because it has the grand fireplace, there was just a lot of stuff happening in the space. But one of the things, and this was my first occurrence with it, is the blue light. and we're going to talk about the blue light. Okay. And I in my time doing this show, this podcast, we've come across, we've investigated a lot of different things. We've explored ideas. So some things made it to the program, some things haven't yet. We get to listen to other people's stories, and the recurrence of a blue light in a paranormal setting is not unique to us. And I think that's really interesting. But it's something that happened in this house over and over, on this property for that matter, over and over again. But one of the most interesting things was around the fireplace. We would have a swelling of a light blue light that would just be different than a flashlight light, and obviously not white. Although I own, and I got this idea from another paranormal investigator who was with us. They make a flashlight that has 3 different colors in it. You just click it it goes red, it goes green, it goes blue, it goes white. So, you want a softer, different lighting set than the bright white light, then you would just change your filter. So that blue light is not unusual to the way this blue looks, but not having that light on and having this blue light appear, it happened several times. And this room kind of seems to me to be the launching point for it, or at least where it starts from. It starts to emanate from this space and changes to wherever else it wants to go. So,
and this is the master bedroom, Jamie.
This is the master bedroom. So if we could put back into the pictures, into the image of the front of the house, it would be the room to the upper left, on the second floor on the left. Back one. There you go. So the 2 windows to the left upstairs would be the master bedroom, and one of the windows on the side. Well, 2 windows on the side. So it's a very large room. The bedroom to the Jacob's room to the right would be the other windows. And as we move back, the house would be the other kids. Behind that room, or heading back toward the back half of the house, the next room is Annie's room. And Annie is a young child, a girl, of course. I want to say she was somewhere in the 10 to 13 range. Melissa, Jerry, you can help me on that age, just it's been a minute. Yep. But here we captured the EVPs of what sounds like a young child. We used a ball, a toy, as a trigger object, and that ball moved on the floor. And utilizing the flashlight idea of turning a flashlight mag light leaving it on and turning it to its very touching point. By loosening it and using that as a tap to call and response for yes, no's. We had lots of activity around flashlights in that space. So the idea here was it's a pretty calm, comforting space. We spent a lot of time here, of course. We engaged with Annie. And this is also where, when we first started exploring, as far as our team, growing the team, we brought in our teammate, Matt, and he brought along his daughter, Chloe. And Chloe had a direct connection to Annie in this space as well. And Chloe at the time was probably 10 or 12, maybe.
Yeah.
10. I mean, she's
9, I think.
Yeah.
She's a teenager now, so, but it's been several years. So, and that was a really interesting connection, because, it's a peer at that point. And the innocence of children, brings out more things. So she always had a direct connect there. And also our former teammate, junior teammate, Noah, also had a connection here in the space too. So I thought it was really interesting, to bring that out by bringing in someone of a peer group. Really was an interesting piece to this. So
you had Annie there and Ani at the brewery.
Ani, yes, and the difference is likely the same spelling, if you will, but the difference is in accent. You have a kind of a Dutchy accent here with the Haldemans, and you have a distinct Austrian accent with the Boobies at the brewery. So same word, just how you say it is uniquely different.
I think the best interaction I had with Annie was I always laid on the floor, that filthy, dusty wooden floor with her, and I would sit there with her toys, and she would light up flashlights and other objects that were there, and to communicate with us. Yep. And I said to her, Mimi's too old to sit here and lay on this filthy floor. I said it's cold and it's dirty, and I said, and I don't like creepy little bugs, right?
Yeah.
So as soon as I said bugs, that flashlight come on, and didn't it aim right at a centipede that was coming right towards me? And I was like, oh, hell no.
Yeah.
I had to take her. I was up, out. I never got off that floor so quick.
Yeah, she moved pretty quick.
But He was protecting me. I felt like she was protecting me.
Absolutely, because that would have ate you, that bug. So
Good times, Chad.
Yeah.
well, this room is another. There's a funny story to this space, and it didn't start out as a funny story. We had a group of guests, and one of them was they brought something with them. We try to do grounding and centering.
Oh, yeah.
And we know who this is. We're not going to name names, but we know who this is. This individual definitely brought something with him, some energy with him that was less than positive. And we were having issues all night, with just odd things happening. We had an SLS hit that was incredibly bizarre as far as a thing growing and just kept escalating in height.
Yeah.
Over and around people. So we cut the investigation short. We all as a team took a break and we ran down to Marietta to a Sheetz convenience store place. Got something to drink, took a little bit of a break there and came back and continued to investigate and starting in Annie's room. And, nothing really happening, but things definitely felt different. It was tense, it was heavy. And then coming back, it was much lighter and more normal what the house is. It's a pretty calm space. And the funny thing about this is, going back to later and listening to the audio of the session, all I heard was the sound of monsters growling. and I had to listen to it a couple times to actually really understand what I was hearing. And basically it was just all of us digesting. Our stomachs were growling, or stuff that we do.
And I wasn't even there yet, Jamie.
Yeah, right. It wasn't even you this time. It was really funny to listen to. Now, obviously, it's not evidence. It's nothing we can keep. But with it, it's just one of those things where you don't know what you're going to capture. Sometimes you really have to listen a time or two just to make sure you're really clear on what you're going to present forward.
Mm-hmm.
And getting a second opinion as well. I think I shared it with somebody. Might have been Andrew to say, "Hey, what is this?" We all laughed at it. Oh wow. As you look at that floor, moving back through, there are two other rooms. One is kind of the old bathroom. You can see that by the fixtures that are there and what were there. But the room I want to really talk about is all the way in the back, which is here in this picture, the room that would be the second floor window facing the back corner, which is considered the servant's room. And a quarters living space for a servant who we understand was a male. Again, the family had affluence, and that's where I want to talk about it earlier. Is that as they gained wealth, they also gained the ability to bring staff on board to manage the house with them. They had kids to manage, they had property to deal with. They, therefore, they had a cook, they had a maid or a butler, a servant. They had groundspeople. There was stuff that came with their wealth that you needed or had at least by their affluence. So this space was a first for me. There's two firsts in this property. The first, though, for me, is we were doing a Phasma box session, and there was probably 4, 5, 6 of us in the room. And as all good, courteous investigators do, we first introduced ourselves and went around and did a circle. And then after that, I asked about if whoever's with us could name someone in the room. And clear as day through the Phasma box, we heard, "That's Jamie." Now, I don't think I have an overly unusual name, but it's not a very common name either. So to hear that, and I've never heard my name through any device before, ever in an investigation anywhere. So it was a pretty cool thing, and a little bit like, ooh. But it was definitely a distinct, dark or deep male voice saying so. That room has no power, and we would have K2 hits in there all the time, in all the areas of the room. There was the closet. There is a stairway that is unable to be accessed because of age that would take you directly down into the first half of the kitchens. So that was where the servant would be able to come and go without being seen. But in that area as well, there was definitely K2 hits, and we had lots and lots of SLS hits in there as well. And that one being that truly demonstrative growing figure that I mentioned before we took a break in that last session. So some really interesting stuff. And the closet, these closets aren't closets like that. These are not walk-in closets. These are barely able to put your hands in them closets, because they're so tiny and so narrow. But there was something about that closet. If someone would go inside and close the door behind them, and be in there for a while, they would start to feel uneasy and just be out of sorts. I've done it. I can admit that to some degree, and be touched. Yes, that's the other part. Thank you. So many have done it. Have you guys had an experience in that sense?
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
The ear, touching the ears.
Yep. The ear. Yep.
All right.
So,
we got a weird spirit there then.
So touching on the closets, do you know why closets were small in colonial houses?
Do tell.
Hiding spots.
You were taxed on your amount of closet space.
Oh.
Really?
I learned that at the Daniel Boone estate one time. The more closet space you had, the higher your taxes were.
Okay.
So,
These weren't just closets, Chad. Let me tell you. Between Annie's room and the master bedroom, on either side, they had these like
Fold out doors.
pool doors.
Doors, yeah.
But you could walk into the wall. They were they were amazing.
Yeah.
Like,
oh wow.
It was the weirdest thing.
But you
I've
gotta
never
walk
seen
sideways though.
Yeah.
Like, you know.
Yeah, and they tucked in so that when you walk through the doorway, it looked like it just had a wall. Like a large door frame, really wide door frame. And then you pop them in, and then you had these large storage spaces on both sides. It was very creative. But I guess that's how
I think that's where we found the mirror.
Yeah.
Yes.
That's what a mirror was.
That's true.
Yep. And that mirror stayed at the Haldeman when we left.
We
It
don't
did
want
not come with us.
So you mentioned that the servants' room did not have power. How much of the rest of the house had power?
Well, the second floor didn't have power at all, except for and we used to set up. There's at the top of the stairs to the right. There's a pass-through room that was a bedroom at one point, heading over to Annie's room. So, and then there was a hallway on the other side of it, then the master room, bedroom. So that room, we would set up a camera system in the table with our camera system, but we would be running power from downstairs, which did have electric work down there.
A lot of tape.
Power cords up the stairs, taping them down, all this stuff, trying not to create trip hazards.
Right.
And then one evening, we noticed in the master bedroom in the corner, there's like a little box. And what somebody had done is run a line up and just let it there. And it was, it was power. But there were no outlets upstairs. Nothing that was there was functional anywhere on the upstairs half of the house. So anywhere that we had any kind of, either a K2 hit or a REM pod or anything that would be measuring electromagnetic energy was not picking up on a power source coming from the walls or anywhere in the house upstairs. So, and it did happen often. It was quite interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
So
it's like a paranormal party there at the Haldeman.
Yeah,
really. It's a paranormal party because you have the river, you have the
limestone,
full of energy down there at White Cliffs, all over the place, and you even have the railroad tracks, and then you have the Native Americans. You have, I'm sure there were other deaths other than the Native Americans on that land.
3 Mile Island.
3 Mile Island is very close. So it was just like a paranormal party every day.
Maybe that's the blue glow was just a radiation.
What's that?
Well, yes, the blue glow is probably just radiation coming from TMI.
There you go.
The other thing is debunked, done, we're out. It's like the opening of The Simpsons when Homer flips the piece up and it lands in his suit and he takes it home. The other thing too is at the back of the carriage house, which was your residence, your apartment, behind is a well as well, somewhere back there in that other set. So there's water under the property as well as much as nearby in the river and the other access. So quite interesting. You're right. It is kind of like it's not even a paranormal party, but it's the perfect storm of things coming together to promote the activity that is present, that we believe is present. So let's get downstairs for a minute. So, coming back through, going down the big stairwell, off to the right, in the place where we would start our investigations is an area called the ballroom. And here, it's an interesting space because it has 2 fireplaces. So, it was definitely the entertainment spot. It had a grand entrance or exit, I should say, exit either way, to the side of the house. And it's kind of visible there in the picture on the front half of the house it's like the white door there, but it's more nice now, I think, than that version of it. But with it, it would have been where the family entertained guests, and there were many, dignitaries coming through. The Haldemans were well established as people were passing through the area. They would definitely stop, whether they stayed or whether they were just there for an event. Certainly, we talked a little while ago about some of the river crossings. The Shanks Ferry was just south of this location, so one of the transit points heading west was nearby. So the house, if you knew somebody was known, they would be a guest there. Then staying perhaps at the tavern that would have been established at the crossing. So a nicer stay, something fitting of their station and their prestige of knowing the family. So, but that ballroom has a door that leads into a den, which is a study that was always closed because that room held artifacts from the original family. But that door promoted the sounds of scratching, which we believe to be potentially a paranormal cat or paracat, a pet. And occasionally there will be lights seen under the study door when there certainly is no one in there. And that door is secured. There's two entrances, one in the foyer and one here in the ballroom. There's no access to that room, have anybody in there with lights on. But one thing we did notice that kind of slightly debunk that is that on the front porch, there is a security light, motion censored security light. So perhaps that was shining in the front window, which would then be visible under the door, maybe. It's a long walk across that room, but light is light. So it was never overly bright. I believe you, Melissa, had a unique experience in this room as well. Do you want to tell us about it? The visitor perhaps looking through the window.
Oh, my friend.
Oh, yeah, that one.
Yeah. So, all right. So we took, I guess it was in 2017 or 18. We took a bunch of us. Jerry and I gathered some friends who like to watch the shows and stuff before we really expanded as a team. And we took them up to the Haldeman. We had a guy with us who was not very polite to any of the spirits there at the Haldeman. He kind of mimicked and mocked us all night.
Oh, yeah.
So at the end, my friend Diana was there, and we were trying to communicate with the Native Americans. And she had her moon board out. We had the pendulums out and dowsing rods. And he kept laughing and laughing and laughing at us while we sat at that table, and kept saying, this is bullshit. This isn't real. And the more he did it, the madder I got. And I think what I saw was on the side of the house where the big doors are, where the horses would pull up and drop the the party goers off at. There's a window next to that, and what I saw was an Indian. It was, I would say, a young Indian, not a child, but a young male. He had perfectly straight black hair in braids. The face was painted, and it was only his head, like he was peeking around the window, and he just smiled at me. And I was like, I just stood there and just stared at him. Like I didn't know what, that was the first time I saw something at the Haldeman. Right. And I kind of just looked at him but he gave me that feeling that, yeah, he's an asshole. You are seeing me. And if he'd kept his mouth shut, he might have saw him too. Right. Yeah, so
exactly. Well, it goes to energy, right? When you promote positive energy, positive things happen. You're going to be negative. You're going to miss opportunities, and and it's like hanging out with people. You really want to hang around with somebody who's just going to be a jerk. You want to hang out with somebody who has some interest that you have as well. Something of kindred spirits, pun intended, perhaps, and maybe a plug for another show somebody else does. Right. But, it's just one of those things, and I can certainly see that.
That's what prompted us to do that song at the end of the night. Everybody's all excited and all, ramped up from the night. We would end it by playing Enigma's Return to Innocence. Yep. Because the original songwriters were actually from a tribe. I can't remember what country they were in, though.
It wasn't United States.
And they did this song. They made this song. And Enigma got a hold of it and made it more modern. Wasn't all like drums and the wife just singing it. And they started promoting it. They started making money off of it. Well, this couple sued them for the rights to that song, and they actually won. So every time it's played, whether it was on YouTube or on the radio, they got money every single time in royalties that song was played. We stole it was like we took their land, and now we got to take their songs. I mean, come on. So we honored the Native Americans that way every night during our investigations. We would just take the time to just reflect and just, calm down before the night and people went home. So I miss that.
Matt plays it once in a while.
Yeah, I miss it.
Yeah, I agree. And it's as the, as much as the centering and grounding and the opening, is intended to be calm. The exit needs to be calm as well. That's why we tell folks to cut ties before they leave. It just gives you that soft exit instead of just like leaving all hyped up with it and having an attachment or anything could happen if you don't have that staged exit, intentional exit. So yeah, and that story's always stuck with me, for a lot of reasons. One is that it's you guys. It's so uniquely you to see this. Like of anybody who should, it's you. And I have no doubt that it happened. Absolutely. I mean, I trust you guys, and you've earned that by being honest and truthful investigators. You throw away the junk. If it's not, we're not going to falsify something. That's not what JOTT-NYX does. There's a natural tie to the land. That's why it was important for me to talk about the history, going back through all the tribes that have been on this property or in this area. Because now we don't see much trace of it. The river has become an industrial zone, by the encroachment of colonizers and settlers. But where it was in the time, it was still a thriving location. There were still societies here. There were still people here who were co-joined and interacted with each other and had commerce and had relationships. But, and I'm not saying anything. If it weren't for colonizers, we wouldn't be here. I'm not. I get it, but in that sense, we have to remember what was here before us. That's just only fair to do so and take a minute for it. So that's just such a beautiful tie between what's old and new. Because there's three layers there. It's the original indigenous folks, and it's the Haldemans and what they've created, and it's us now here in the current. It's cool they all connect.
And it's sad because the burial ground is right over behind the summer kitchen, down a little bit.
Yep.
And there are still bodies out there.
Yeah. Absolutely.
That's just another
because as we transition into that, Bert had this comment about behind the summer kitchen.
Yeah, he had an experience.
So.
Well, Bert had, speaking of summer kitchen, I'm going to get there next, in a moment. But let's talk about the foyer real quick too, because that ties. Coming out of the ballroom, you go into the foyer. The foyer is like the grand front entrance at the beginning of the house off the front porch. The great door is there. The big grand stairwell is there. Leading you up. The little cubby underneath where Gunther hung out is there. Gunther, our buddy. At one point they did a Halloween haunted house there, and there was one of those gaudy, ugly Halloween pop-out scare things that was tucked into the closet but facing the door. So every time you'd open it, he'd be right there. It was always good for a jump scare, for those who were terrified of the house and all that.
Yep.
I had a lot of fun with that actually, leading upstairs. But the foyer itself, there's a door to the study, the door to the ballroom, and then the stairs. And there's another door that leads out to what would be the back porch. But the front door was the thing. So we were there standing in the foyer one night, and the front door rattled as if someone was trying to open the lock. And that door is secure. There's nobody coming through it. It's got two locks on it, if I remember correctly. The door handle's the door handle, like anything else, and it's an old blocking tackle kind of door thing. So it rattled significantly. I recall Andrew bolting, through and around to get to the front porch. We all follow because he's younger and faster. But getting outside, the security light's on, of course, because he's already there. But he claimed it was on before. But there's nobody around. As we fanned out across the yard, around the side of the house, there's not a soul anywhere. So something was trying to get in that door. And it would make sense, sort of in a residual sense, that would be the door they would have used. So it's quite interesting. Unfortunately, we didn't get to replicate again as many times as I can recall being there. I only had that experience once, but
Right.
still footing as well because it was loud. Quite interesting. So, but speaking of Burt Lynch and his lovely wife Heather, who are with us here on the chat, we're going to go over to the summer kitchen. And here in the image we're showing now is the building that's between the two large buildings. It sets back a little bit. Again, this was a use in the hot weather months where it would have kept the heat out of the house. There's still a hearth in the room. It's a very small space. It's basically one room on the ground floor with the stairs that go up to a second floor. Up there now are two beds. At least there were two beds there, two twin beds. So somebody could have stayed there as well. But I'm not so sure it was ever a bedroom so much as probably was storage for food and other things. It would probably hung some things from the ceiling to dry and cure. But it's nice to think somebody lived there, so that's cool. And there's a closet, a much bigger closet there than any other place on the property. But
Yes.
there in the
Yes.
space, yeah, right, weird. But now, and it's a brick floor, it's a brick wall, kind of, it's a really cool space actually. Here's another first for me. Upstairs, we were having a session, and I was standing along what is the back wall between two of the three windows I believe it has. And directly on my right side, somebody poked me, and like a firm touch. And I thought somebody was standing next to me trying to get my attention. It's dark, there's no lights out there. I looked to my right, and there's nobody there at all. I'm 4 feet away from the top of the stairs. So for me, I've been touched since, and every time you get touched, it's off-putting. Your ears in the closet. Like whoa. Because you expect something to be there that you can see, something physical because it's a physical touch. And anybody else who's been touched, feel free to let me know your experience with it because I'm curious, like how it made you feel. We invite being touched often in investigations, as a way to make connection, but it's never been on demand, and this wasn't either for that matter. But it was like, whoo. Up there again, same thing. No power, so K2 hits happening regularly. There was REM pod activity. One of my most interesting experiences there was with a guest who had an SB7, and she was sitting on one of the windowsills, kind of over to the corner, and she was claiming at least to get activity from someone who was claiming to be an employee working the kitchen downstairs, and through the course of then call and response with this, trying to follow a track with it, we tried to understand who he was, where he was from. He was a man. He didn't share his name that was discernible, but we did get that he was from Harrisburg, which is just a few miles to the north. That would make sense. And that he missed his family, but he could not go home often because he didn't have a horse to ride. So he would have to walk, and that was pretty far. So, or hire a carriage, as it may be. So, very interesting session that night, actually. And if I'm remembering correctly, it was during a thunderstorm. So, we know from recent activity at Boo's Brewery, we had a storm two investigations ago. We had a ton of stuff happen that night. So, the weather, the energy of the atmospheric energy brings cool stuff. So,
Oh yeah.
we just got to plan all our investigations around thunderstorms. That's it, right? And here, speaking this is where Bert ties in. He's shared with me that he saw a face looking when he was walking up the stairs. He looked over the chair rail, the knee rail, and he saw a face looking back at him over the top of it. So it was a little bit off-putting, and I'm sure he's going to chime in here in a second and tell us the real story of that. But it is. So yeah, and I have never forgotten that you've told me that, Bert. So some things stick with you through the years, and this is one of those interesting experiences. And we, of course, try to duplicate experiences, and nothing that we could do has done so.
So it seems like Heather definitely saw stuff. She heard whistling. Heather saw cats as soon as she got out of the car.
Yep. That's true.
In the upstairs of the summer kitchen too, and I'll get to some of this later, but we've had a few we'll say professional paranormal investigators, although we all are professionals, right? But Mustafa Galatari was there one evening with Daryl Marston. 2 events we did with them there, and he and I were up there with a group in the upstairs. It's summertime, so it's hot, and I had my EDI Plus setting up on the ledge, on the front wall ledge, and if you've ever get to an opportunity to investigate with Mustafa, you'll know that he does not stop talking the entirety of the time he's investigating, and it's manic energy in a good way. He's just babbling, like just trying to bring something out, and he's talking about Bon Jovi and being from New Jersey and all this other stuff. And he just stops and turns and looks over at the EDI Plus, and the temperature on it was it 80.0. And he's like, "Oh, look, it says boo." He goes 800. It's boo. So I will never. Every time we're in a place when the EDI is out and it hits 80, I'm like, "Oh, look, it says boo." I can't forget that now. So. It's a good time. Really good time.
So it sounds like you had some interest from the comments. It sounds like you had some interesting SLS. It's here Bert saying he was holding on Annie's hand up there. And then Tim said, he said a voice saying, "Look over here," and he turned and a camera showed up on the figure, or a figure showed up on the camera.
Wow.
So,
super cool.
Yeah.
So
a lot of shadow people up there too.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing. Like it's the property overall, and this building is maybe not the most original of the original structures, but it certainly has been there a very long time. So, the energy, the activity, the residualness of it all is going to bring something forward to it. It's that space. It's just there. Another part going back to the house is the attic. Speaking of an upstairs space, we were not allowed to. It's a secure door. Little did I know that you guys had a key the whole time. What the heck? But I did get a chance to get up there one night. I never made the basement. I'm so mad about that still. Because I was expecting it to be like some, root cellar, dingy dirt floor thing. And here it turns out apparently it's a full, masonry built foundation. So, but another door that's secured, no one's, and it's liability. I get it. I totally understand. And that's the challenge. To go with a place that, especially an old property like this, where there is some challenges to the structural integrity based on its age, and the attic is one of those things where it's just, allegedly a little softer. But it really turns out to be there's some artifacts up there, right? And they don't want people messing with their stuff. And I totally appreciate that too. It's a different direction, but it's the same idea. It's something that's at risk for preservation. But when you get to those places, you have to be careful. And, the first time I went up there, I'm kind of walking around looking at the floor, just anywhere there might be a soft spot or, splintering or anything. And here I'm realizing, there's racks and racks of stuff. I'm like, it's really wrong here. But while we're up there, and this is the night that Daryl is there, Daryl Marston is with us, and RTL or RTS Paranormal is downstairs. Your old friends there. They're yelling about the blue light. And so we kind of go try to figure out what they saw, and it started from the master bedroom at the fireplace, the grand fireplace. So we managed to go back upstairs, and again, I have a flashlight that has red, blue, green, and white. So I'm taking the blue, and there's an opening along the side of the flue where I can stick the light in and turn on the blue, and I'm trying to get that light to come down through the shaft. It would come out then or be visible at the fireplace in the master bedroom. And yes, it works to some degree, but it's nowhere near the intensity or the brightness of what was seen by the folks in the room at the time. And that kind of led to, a lot of like what's going on here, which we'll talk about the blue light a little bit more. But one of the other things about the attic, is again, not having access to it. But when you're on the second floor, there's a landing, and the stairwell to the attic goes up, over, and back again. So it's one of those hook arounds. And we would often leave things on the stairs, like a cat ball or a REM pod, a static device that we could let go. And there was a table in the foyer where I'd often leave a Steadicam just to watch it. Many times, most times what would catch is a whole lot of swirly dust. Their media might call it an orb. I don't know. Love you, Dave. But with that, one of the times, two of the times, we were leaving the area down on the first floor, nowhere near the space. And the cat ball would activate or the REM pod would trip. So how or why, I have no idea, because we're not there. We're not moving around to jostle the ball, and we're certainly not touching the REM pod to activate it. Not a sustained hit in any case, on the REM pod, just a pop of, it comes on, it chirps. The capital activates once and stops for a while, and then a little while later activates again. So theoretically, it could be somebody. It's an old house, maybe moving around somewhere, but I don't know. But it was really interesting to me because it's again a space that no one's really going to. And if we talk about this all the time, like if I were a spirit and I didn't really want to mess with anybody, or I didn't want anybody to mess with me, I would go someplace where people can't go. That's why you run off to your room. You just kind of close the door, turn the world away, say I'm done. The same idea. Would be the sense to that. So maybe that's what was happening. And since we started to clear out a little bit, there was some curiousness of where we were, whether we really left or not. Maybe that was the activity we're experiencing, but it was definitely something.
Oh yeah.
Yep. And then there's a lot of ground here, right? It's a big property, and we definitely had some activity on the outside as well. And you mentioned it, Melissa. At the bottom left corner of the property, as you're walking toward the river, there are off property actually now is the Native American burial ground. We didn't have a whole lot of time to investigate outside because we'd always have a set of guests with us. So we're managing people and managing the events and expectations and all the stuff. And usually it's herding cats, right? When you're dealing with public, because people drift away and do stuff. So taking breaks and stuff. We're not really having time to go hit the whole property. We talked about the Native American gentleman looking in the window at you, ballroom. That porch light that I mentioned, would go on often. Especially as you're moving through the first floor. There are windows at the foyer in the grand entrance. You would see those lights come on, and yes, it could be a person, probably could be an animal of some kind. There's certainly some wildlife around there. We know we saw deer in the field across next door behind the summer kitchen. Mm-hmm. We definitely have other things running around, but the idea that somebody's passing around on the property certainly isn't out of the realm of possibility as well. There is nobody out there on foot traffic. It is off the beaten path. If somebody's there physically, if a real person is there, they're likely with us as a group. There's certainly nobody else there. There's no neighbors that are close, other than the gentleman who lives in Bottom of the Hill. Once it got dark, he went to bed. So something like that anyway. Very dark, right, as well. So very dark. So speaking of things that are outside of the house is the carriage house, which is the red building here on the left side of this picture. This was your residence, your apartment on the second floor for a while, right? So what did you experience, and what was it like for you guys, being on the property all the time? It's unusual, right, for us as investigators to get to be so close or so immersed, and you had keys to the place in your pocket. So, you can go over anytime. Don't tell me you didn't go over sometimes, right? So,
we did.
I would have too. I'm not blaming you. There's no fault for you. I'd have been like hanging out there every night. What's it like?
It's like a playground.
We would look out our kitchen window and you go right into the servant's room.
Yeah.
So I would always that night go, I wonder if somebody's out, constantly looking. I didn't see anything. But yeah, you're always thinking.
In the wintertime, the Historical Society would have us, we would take down all the old photos from the mansion, and we would keep them up in our apartment to keep them warm so they didn't get moisture damage.
Yeah.
Yep. Okay.
And we had Samuel with us, we had John, we had Annie.
Yeah, we had everything.
Nothing really happened though up there except for Mr. Boots.
Mr. Boots, that's our spirit there.
Mr. Boots.
Sound like boots.
Like a thumpy, heavy walk?
Yeah. Yeah, I heard it, so yeah.
It was normally every night around 5:00. You could hear it. You could hear it going like from our bedroom to the bathroom. It was the weirdest thing. And I'm just like, oh, okay, that's Mr. Boots.
Yeah, so that's his name.
Yeah. The first night, I have to say, I don't think one of us slept because we were like on guard, looking around, waiting to see if something was going to happen.
Yeah.
Because when you're in your own home, you let your guard down. You're comfortable.
And really, the haunted is right across the road. So, you could tell them don't come with us, but they're going to be with us.
Yeah, they come over in the wintertime, stay warm with us, and then they go back out in the spring.
Yeah, they didn't want to be in there as hot.
That's a crowded house then too. It was a small apartment. It's a decent apartment.
Very small.
But in the sense of it, and more than you guys as residents certainly would have been a little tight. When we were all there as a team together, it was a snug event, for gatherings and stuff. But it's interesting to me, the carriage house was added somewhere in the 1800s, so it wasn't an original part of the property.
Right.
And I'm sure that the second floor was not an apartment in its era. Likely would be more there's some stuff with like supply storage, anything to do with the carriages, extra pieces, parts, the tack and stuff for the horses.
Right.
It was, and downstairs clearly has the stable door concept. The horses would have been kept there. So it's interesting that it got converted the way it did. And you still had, even though it would have been much like the summer kitchen. I can't see that having been someone's residence upstairs. But in that, having activity there is still very interesting because it likely would have passed through space. Someone going to get something and putting it there, taking it away.
But a lot of those places, though, as more people moved in, you found places to put them. So that could have been a natural progression.
That's true.
So as more caretakers and servants, and you had to have a place to go with them. So
yeah, that's fair.
We owe the Haldeman Mansion and the Preservation Society a big thank you because
yes,
we learned. Bonnie did some research for us at the Haldeman Mansion, and we actually found out that Andrew, who is my nephew, his last name is Haldeman. He is a direct descendant of John Haldeman, who used to own that mansion. So that's incredible. And he has all the paperwork for that to prove it. So all the way down with his grandfather, with his dad on there, and then now himself. So that was pretty good. I mean, pretty cool. But we did right before COVID, we went to Booby's Brewery just to see if we could get in there as a team.
Right.
And we were talking to Sam, the owner, and he actually asked us to be his team, his resident team there to hold events for him to raise money to help restore the brewery. And out of curiosity, I was like, how did you know about us, And here he was good friends with one of the...
Joe?
Was it Joe?
He knew Joe.
He was friends with people in the Historical Society at the home.
And
on the board, yes. And he saw the article that was put in the paper with us. And he said, I just heard great things about you. And here we are, So in a way, the Haldeman, even though they stopped all the investigations, and
it was our starting point.
It was our starting point as a team, and that's where
we learned how to do. We learned how to do events, and I'd say events. That sounds like it's this grand thing. We learned how to do public investigations with people there. How to lead them, how to present information, how to teach. We had to learn how to teach people things, like how to use equipment and how to go through a proper investigation. We learned it ourselves by doing it, but how do you present that forward? And that's one of the things I'm most proud about with what we do as a team and the things that we do when we have public events like at the brewery now, but then at the Haldeman, the teaching element of it, where, giving people good investigative skills, teaching them how to use equipment, the good practices of how to start an investigation, what to do when you change spaces, how to leave an event or investigation, safely for yourself, but also, to not leave the footprint that, you were there, just be respectful, all that stuff. We learned that as we went, we all grew together and then the team's changed a lot through these last 5 years.
Yeah. We cut our teeth there,
Exactly. We owe it to the preservation.
I'd like to tell a story. And Jamie, you might remember this. As you go up the Haldeman Mansion and go up the hill. And I remember standing with the flashlight. And Jamie came up with a great idea, Chad. You tell him, look where the flashlight is and park the person and go follow. And it would shame me. The problem is the people in the cars don't listen. So his great idea what the hell in the handbag because they don't listen. So
People do what they want. Yeah,
you remember
that's
that?
nothing new, right?
Or standing at the top of the hill with your hockey mask.
Yeah.
Yeah, with your happy mask and a plastic machete, it really didn't help either. So whatever.
As they
You know.
come up over the hill, they see Jerry in the middle of the road.
But we did baby
It was
steps.
spooky
Remember, it
season.
took us an hour and a half to do the security, taping down everything. By then, we were down to half an hour, and then they closed the doors. But we
And
really
the
grew
funny
as a
thing
team.
is that outlet was up there the whole time, and we never knew it. So
I know.
So-
that's the
I know.
funniest part to do.
And-
Wasn't
10
it
minutes
Daniel and Sean were up there, and they plugged it. They used it for their.
That's when we realized it worked. They're like, son of a year and a half, we've been doing
So,
this.
Missy, I mean, I brought this up to you the other night. The team is very organized and structured and things like that. And I'm assuming that's where you learned this. We had a group of guests the other night that was not the way they don't investigate the way we do, and it was just like so different. And it was just like it was a moment where I was like, I'm proud of what we do because we go in, we're organized, we're ready to jump in, and it took this other team. I mean, they were a young team, but it took them a good 20 minutes to get ready to go. And it was, when we go in, we're ready. It's like, yep. So.
Yeah.
Yeah, we Miss does this a lot. She'll say, "Man, we could have did this better." And I was like, "You're right, honey, but you know what? We're still organized.
Mm-hmm.
We know what we're doing,
Yeah.
and
And
we
I
all
love our team. I'm
Yeah.
proud of all of you. Like,
Yeah.
I love our team.
Yeah.
Everybody does a great job.
yes,
So, and we've gotten
Yes.
comments from
Yeah.
other people on that. So.
That's good. And you know what I appreciate the most? How you
Me.
guys.
Well, that's a wrap. Good night.
yeah.
We're done. You know what I appreciate the most about the team, and I hope most of them are really watching this tonight, is they respect the fact that this is my baby. I appreciate that. Yeah. So.
Yeah, and I want to thank everyone that won here. We met great friends, and if Erica and Tim,
Yeah, like Bert.
yeah, Bert. I mean, we have so many friends from the home.
Wait,
and
no, I call him Bart. I call him Bart.
Yes, Bart. You see, you get me mixed up. But Haldeman Mansion helped us so much,
It did.
and we've grown, and we're going to keep growing.
And and it also taught us a lesson at the Haldeman. We're very truthful.
Yes.
We get the stories correct, and we don't falter from that.
Yes, I got in trouble for that.
We're too honest sometimes.
Jamie, I read a comment in 2019, and it had bashing me a miss, and I'm like, oh my gosh, I remember that.
Right.
It was when we first took over.
It was horrible.
I kind of remember
We'll
this.
show it to you.
Yeah,
We were kind of set up, that type of thing.
Yeah.
Well, but that's the part of this, that we, as much as you do good, you will never do good enough for somebody, right? And there are those who are trying to set traps for you and land mines, and I think the key to success for anything any of us ever do is resilience, because we're gonna have hills and valleys, and the peaks and valleys. Sorry. The peaks are great, the views are fantastic, but the valleys, but they're never as high as we think they are, and the valleys are never as low as we believe them to be. Just try to find the steadiness, and haters are going to hate, loves are going to love, and we're all somewhere in the middle of all of that. Like I don't let people say, hey, it was great, everything, that's cool. I really appreciate somebody had a great time, but I don't take that to mean we're awesome, because we have room to improve. And when somebody has a suggestion about something we can do better, I take it to heart. And we try to figure out how to do it great. We're always evolving, we're always growing, and that's the cool thing about the way this has all worked out for us. And
Right. And I like to tell
there, so thank you.
Right, and I like to tell people at our investigations, we might not do things the right way, but we do things our way.
Yeah,
it may not be the right way to other people, but this is how we are. And I'm proud of that. I'm proud of what we've done.
Jim has a question for you. Is that sage hanging from your cabinets?
Just a wreath now.
No, just pretty reads.
Yeah.
I can make you a safe though, Jim. I'll drive it down to Jersey for you.
There it is.
So,
Well, I have a little bit more I want to talk about with the mansion. So there's
Okay.
two things. One, and this is something I think I need to do an episode on somewhere down the line, and it might already be on the schedule. I don't remember, but and I'm going to talk about some folks who came through the building, the property with us. But one of the things that I most recall, and something that has stood out to me ever since, is we had Jack Kenna visit a couple times, and Jack was discussing with us at one point how he felt there were portals on the property.
Yes.
Down to the lower part of the yard, near the burial grounds, in the house itself, in a couple different places. The servants' quarters was one that sticks out to me. And that was not far from the time when the episode that we kind of alluded to with the SLS and the increasing entity kind of visualization happened. And, so portals is going to have to be something we talk about at some point on this program. But Jack, being one of those people who came to visit, we had, I mentioned already, Daryl Marston and Mustafa Galatari, both from the last iteration of Ghost Hunters on A&E. Sean Aston has come through. Daniel Clays has come through. A good friend, Daniel Clays, for that matter. Carly Hall came with Jack many times. The Tennessee Wraith Chasers, those guys better than I do, but they're all just fun. And who else? I mean, that's what I'm thinking off the top of my head. We had
the cast of the Ghost Finders were there.
Ghost Finders. Okay.
We had Bill Reap with Reap Investigations. He was there.
Great.
April, the psychic housewife of New Jersey, was there. We met her.
Yep.
Did John come through with his team, John Covey, with his young
Not
team?
when we were there.
Yeah,
no,
not
he
when
went
we
when
were-
Laura was still there.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, we took over in 2019, I believe it was.
Okay.
But we made friends. I mean, Chris
Yeah.
Mendes was there. We had the world's largest ghost hunt there with Ray Savino and Flumery from Virginia. We had Linda and Susan from the Philadelphia area and Nancy Davis.
Yeah, we met a lot of good.
But most
Good
important
Yep.
is Tim and Erica, because Tim and Erica came to the Haldeman and we clicked. The four of us clicked, and they got along really well with you guys. And we wanted them on our team really, really bad.
Yeah, only bad thing.
One bad thing, they lived in New Jersey, and we thought about for a while. We got with them too, and we thought, why don't we just make them a sister team of ours, and they could be JOTT-NYX New Jersey, and that's how they became who they are and how they became part of the family. So,
Thank you, guys.
yes, thank you.
Not that there's
I mean,
anything
we
wrong
met-
with New Jersey.
well,
We
I've been
met
in New
so
Jersey a lot.
many-
I've been to New Jersey a lot, and I'm going to tell you they're the best things from it. So, hey, I kid. That's a really good point. Like in the Lynches, are now family for us. Like they're honoring members of JOTT-NYX, and Southern and
We met Bonnie there. I mean,
Yeah.
Heather and Albert. Yeah, I mean,
there's been quite a lot. And then, Jerry, you were saying earlier about relationships. We built relationships with people along the way, and and thanks to everybody for coming along with us. It's been fun. I want to before we get too far away, I want to step back to Mustafa and Daryl for a couple of things. One is, we have some news involving Daryl as we exit the through the outro of this, but the blue light occurred a night when they were there, and I vividly remember Mustafa running around the loop that is the second floor through the hallways and bedrooms, trying to figure out the source of this. And I just want to spend a couple minutes on this as a kind of the end of it to talk about this, because this was such a thing. The first time I saw it, I was sitting on the floor in Ani's room with my back against the wall, looking toward the windows to the side of the house. And we had a small work session happening, and we were in the middle of an EVP session, and I noticed a blue light in the master bedroom that to me looked like somebody was coming through either the hallway or Jacob's room toward us, because it was soft, but it was getting brighter. And honestly, Melissa, I thought it was you. as you weren't maybe attached to a group, you were just kind of checking up on everybody as you did often, you still do often. And I thought, okay, I'm just going to see you appear in the doorway. And then the light faded, but it never left. Like it didn't just change direction. It just got softer and eventually it faded down. I'm listening for footfall. You can hear the steps when somebody comes up, even though you're across the house from me and the steps creak.
Right.
None of the cues that was a human person coming in that direction. And I got up and literally walked into the room and there's literally nobody there. So that was my first experience with it. And I didn't really say anything. I should have at the time. And shame on me for it. But, as far as a personal experience, there's no documentation. That's when I started to realize that something weird was happening. And then, hearing somebody else talking about it, then I realized we have something going on here. And I don't know that we've ever really truly understood what it is. We've tried to manage it with like the blue light of my flashlight. We've tried to show it and shine it in different places. It's not the same. The radiance of it. I believe there was an experience that night with kind of like a curtain between the bedrooms. I remember you passing through that space. If I remember, I'm trying to not putting words on you, but I think that was your story to tell. Outside the light would occur as well. And on the property grounds, people would see it there. I mean, it's just such a phenomenon that leads me to believe there's activity. That's one of the cues for me now. It's like somebody starts talking about seeing light. And it's always blue. The variance of the shade, I guess, can change, but it's not a bright royal blue. It's certainly there. Hey, there's Maggie, our honorary team pet for the program. So it's something, and we're not the only ones who saw it. The RTL folks who were there that night saw it. Mustafa saw it. We just couldn't capture what it was though.
Right.
And your experience in the carriage house, did you have any exposure to it there?
No.
Okay, so exclusive to the house. Okay.
Yeah, and be the right-hand corner to the front in the master bedroom. That's where I saw it.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's where I saw it.
What are you doing?
Oh, sorry, guys. It's on. Hey, girl.
The night that RTL was there, they were actually there leading Daryl's event.
Right.
And they were there Friday night and Saturday night.
Yeah.
Friday night, I believe her name was Chris. Her and I were standing in Annie's room right at the doors to go into the master bedroom.
Yeah.
And she looked at me and she said, Melissa, look in that room and tell me what you see. And I looked in and there was nothing but fog.
That's what it looked like.
And I looked at her and said, what the heck is that? And she's like, I don't know. I said, we both felt drawn to go into that room. So all of a sudden, I just go around the corner. I take off into the room.
Yep.
And she said, Melissa, you disappeared into that fog.
Yep.
Like I couldn't see you anymore. And she goes, what did you see? And I said, I saw a door. It was shaped like a hallway. And there was a door at the end of the hallway. And there was a little girl walking to that door. And I came back out. And we just looked at each other like, what just happened here? Like, what was that? Like,
yeah, I was on the other side on Annie's room, toward where the schoolroom would be, you'd say, and it looked foggy. And next thing I knew, Melissa just takes off and goes and
disappeared into the
it felt like forever. It was probably half a minute, but she just comes back and she just has this Melissa look on her face, like, what the hell did I just see?
Wow.
So,
and then
I'm getting chills.
Well, the second night then, Daryl says, Melissa, I know you have the key to the attic. He goes, I saw my first shadow person ever at the Haldeman, up in the attic. He goes, can I please have some time to go up there? I'm sure. So I opened it up for him only. So I go downstairs to join the girls that are in the master bedroom. And the other people were just talking, getting along, screaming and hollering, whatever. It was the end of the night. And I go into the room, and all of a sudden, everything froze.
it's on recorder.
It's on. There's a voice recorder where you couldn't even hear the people talking in the other rooms. Everything went silent for a minute and a half. It was like a time lapse.
Yeah, it was weird.
And at that time, that blue light showed up above the fireplace. It looked like a hurricane from the satellite view.
Like
the
a swirl. Okay.
And the blue beam came down in front of the fireplace and then shot back up like a UFO would, and just left. And I looked at the girls and they looked at me, and none of us were able to even communicate while that was going on.
Yeah.
Like, we couldn't even open our mouths.
Wow.
So, yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know.
The blue light.
Now, right, but there was 2 other people there. Tracy and Chris were both with us.
Right.
So we listened to the recorder to see if we could hear anything from that moment. And it's dead silence.
It was about a minute and a half.
Nothing. And we don't remember that minute. Last thing I remember was walking through the door saying, hey, to the girls. Next thing I know, we're looking at each other like, what just happened here?
Yeah.
Right. So it's like a lost time. Right.
Yeah, they documented it. I mean, they wrote it all out, so we have documentation of it, but I don't know what that was.
Yeah.
Wow.
Let's say we were getting weird blue light, UFO.
Weird. It was getting really weird up the whole.
I'm waiting to see Bigfoot or something,
And we're
Maybe
emailing
they'll
us.
twitch.
I was telling you earlier, people were emailing us who had private parties, private events, a month prior to that event. Ours was the 16th and the 17th of July, and theirs was June 16th. And they had documented that they saw blue lights at the top of the trees down by the river, and the light was going down through the trunk of the tree.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay.
And this was a month before.
Yeah.
So I don't know.
I only can say this. I wish, and and I appreciate the Preservation Society's decision to do what they've done. They made it into an event space. They've upscaled it. We were helping to raise the funds needed to help with the renovation and restoration of this place, and it's a beautiful property. I get it. They want to get away from us and the paranormal in general and get to like a wedding venue and an event space, and okay, cool. But I wish we could still go back.
I know.
There's unfinished business there. We do. Yeah.
Well, Jamie, we've talked about this with a couple places, and we talked about it with the Rockford. The Rockford,
Plantation.
It's not plantation. I forget what it's called.
Plantation's a fancy name for a farm. Okay, come on. It's a farm.
But it's more than that too. I mean, they changed their name for marketing as well. We talked about it a couple weeks ago with Eastern State Penitentiary. We've talked about it here. These things are cyclical. I mean, I think given time and in cooperation, I think we will be able to get back in some of these places. At least I hope we can. Because we know that paranormal and events can coincide. Like they don't happen at the same time. We can do both. And they do happen at the same time, but that's
we know good about that too, right?
But just given time, I'm hoping that we can work things out. I know there's a lot of people in this field out there working on allowing some of these historic places to go hand in hand with the paranormal to continue raising funds to keep the preservation going. Because they're not going to make the money just doing events. There's other ways out there to do it. So we can all keep our fingers crossed and hope that one day we can get back in there. So because I've never been there, I want to go see, especially now that I've heard more and more stories. So.
We definitely want to lock you in the servants' closet. So let's cross fingers and just do a little hoping and who knows.
I know. I'll keep working on it.
Yeah, we got Joe's number, so.
Right. We didn't leave on bad terms. It wasn't like, we burned bridges, they burned bridges. It was like, hey, we're going a different direction. So, okay, cool.
COVID hit, and then everybody just went different directions.
Yep.
And maybe it's kind of a serendipitous thing. We were having the conversation about how do we do the Haldeman and how do we do boobies at the same time?
We're going to grow the team.
we were going to manage 2 sites at that point, and so one door closes, another one opens. Maybe it was just meant to be that way, but the whole idea, and they're not far apart and everything, but then you can do a package, one night, one the other, but still, okay, we got what we can manage, and we've grown from it, so I think that's a good thing.
It's funny, Jamie. I was thinking, man, all the equipment we have now, that'd be great there. And we really have a lot. You know what I mean?
Right. What was easy when you can walk across the parking lot, now you got to lug it up 2 flights of stairs and around the bend.
Our biggest thing was the security equipment.
I know.
We were spending all that time doing that, but yeah, that'd be great there.
Yeah.
Would love to go back.
Yeah.
Yeah, let's keep our hopes and aim high on that one, and you never know. That's way well said, Chad. Well said.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
Well, we are getting late, and for those who don't know, we don't normally go this long unless we have.
We'll be in bed at 9:30.
Unless Steve Dills is around, then we go for like 6 hours. But
Yes.
Steve,
He can
love you,
talk.
Steve.
I was talking to Jerry about that the other night.
Mm-hmm.
But we probably should wrap up and then get back to. We all have day jobs to go to, so. But we do have some upcoming stuff. For those who are new to us, what we normally will do is one of us will select a topic. I'm up again next week. We're going to talk about the Brown Mountain Lights down in North Carolina, phenomenon that's been happening since before time, kind of thing, like documented time. So started as passed down oral history from native tribes in the area and all the way through today. Chad's going to tackle table tipping in 2 weeks. I'm going to try to say the word correctly, but tackle the Hoya Baciu Forest, which is Romania's Bermuda Triangle, if you will. 3 connective points where all kinds of crazy stuff happens. Chad's going to tackle Laurel Hill Cemetery after that. I'm going to tackle Tulpa, which is very interesting is how we as individuals can manifest spirits ourselves. So kind of an interesting, slightly out there thought process. We'll do the best with it. A requested episode on the folklore of Ireland with the puka coming up. And then after that, being as we're in the midst of hurricane season, I have a special episode on the haunted Pawleys Island down in South Carolina. A spirit there.
Okay.
Quite interesting to me anyway. And Heather, there you are, Heather. You're welcome. You spoke. And to that point, if you're out there, you're hearing us, whether you're with us a lot or you're new to us, feel free to drop us a comment and say, hey, I'd like to see this. We're not fancy. We don't have a website, but we do respond when people reach out to us. And we are paranormal investigators. So what we do, we have regular monthly events at a place called Booby's Brewery, I said earlier, in Mountjoy, PA. But we have a spectacular event. I love the title of this poster. Yeah, kudos. But we have, again, on October 19th, I alluded to this earlier, but Daryl Marston is coming to investigate with us, along with Ron Iacovetti and Ron Lourdes with the Staticom project. I get all choked up when I talk about them. And Staticom, if you haven't heard of it yet or don't know much about it, Google it. It is a fantastic cutting-edge technology set where they have a closed circuit system where they capture not just blurbs of things, they capture full sentences and have conversations with folks we can't see. So it is amazing the work they're doing in Staticom in general. Just outstanding. I'm so excited to see them in person. We've had them on before in past episodes, but with that, and you guys had a chance to work with them at the Redmond event last year. But obviously, I did not make that. I had a bad foot, broken foot. So happy to see them finally in person and catch up. So October 19th, be there, be square. And those who've been watching us for a while, we haven't had any days past September 7th in forever. So we now do. So they finally got posted. So our next event is October 10th at the brewery, but after that, basically monthly. We have 2 in September because it's a long month, but 7th and 28th. October 12th, tickets are still available for all of these, November 16th and December 7th. The 19th is that special event, so that's in between there as well. So it's not on this list yet. We'll get it there. And just remember, it's a ticketed event, but you can give tickets as gifts as you get closer to the holidays, or you get that spooky friend who just needs to have some fun. So directly connect to boobiesbrewery.com and get your tickets there. Pretty straight and easy. I'd love to see you at one of our live events. If you have not been in the field investigating, we'll show you how to do it. If you're a seasoned veteran, we'll be happy to work with you. It's a lot of fun. So come on out. All right, and then we got the
Heather, you're always welcomed. You can come whenever you want.
Yep.
You're part of that legacy you have.
That means Bonnie too, right?
That means Bonnie.
And Bonnie. Yeah, we're a good friend, Bonnie. something I want to ask here, and it's not you guys, it's for those viewing us. So we are going to do a first for us. We are always found on our Facebook page and on our YouTube channel Tuesday nights at 9:00. That's our broadcast. But we are now going to upload to Spotify as well. So if you're watching us there, kindly, please, if you like anything that you see, give us a 5-star review. It really helps us to help expand and spread out how far we can go with this. It allows us, and just feedback in general is always positive. So it's going to take 2 days likely to get it uploaded, right, Chad? Because Chad knows more than I do about this stuff, and I'm talking out in the butt a little bit.
And we all have real jobs.
And we have real jobs, right? Yeah, and some of us, have to go to them fairly early. But with that, hopefully we can open up another audience to find us. If folks don't have Facebook and don't know what YouTube is by now, I guess that still happens. But know what Spotify is, because it's easier to find. Spread the word. Share out with us, for us. And help us spread the word. And the more the merrier. There's room for everybody. Much like the paranormal field, right? There's room for everyone. Everybody does something a little different. Everyone's a bit unique. So spread the word and let's see who finds us. We'll be happy to.
One thing before we go, we can end it with this if you want. But my mama bear.
Yeah.
She used to tell Jerry all the time how proud she was of us and our team. Okay, always. And she always says, we always stayed humble. We always stayed true to who we were, And she always said to us, Jerry and I, you're not better than anybody, but you're just as good. So that's just words to live by. We don't think we are better than anybody, but we are just as good.
Yep.
And truthful.
We'll leave it at we're just as good.
Well, I think that's a good place to leave it, don't you?
Cheers to me, Mom. Miss you, hon.
To my mom.
So.
Who showed up at the brewery 2 weeks ago.
She did. She was with us. That's for sure.
Yeah. So.
Hey, Bert has a quick question here, and Chad, you know the answer. So, how are we going to be found on Spotify?
It's actually I didn't put that slide up.
Whoops.
There we are.
It's there. I think you'll be able to search JOTT-NYX or Paranormal Lens. Either one should come up. Yeah. But the podcast will be listed under Paranormal Lens and JOTT-NYX as well. So.
And if you can figure out how to find it via all of that, you win a prize. I don't know what that prize is yet, but you probably get to spend time with us. That's your prize.
And once we have something posted, it might be easier to actually. That's the URL, but we'll be able to actually.
Okay.
Reference it once we're
whatever that is.
Yeah. So anyway,
Looks good, guys.
Okay, look good. Thank you.
You bet. So, well, I want to say, Jamie, Jerry, Missy, thank you, because I have not been there. I didn't know anything. I've heard stories, but this just opened my eyes so much more. So thank you all for coming on and sharing this. I hope people out there enjoyed it. I definitely did. And I want to thank everybody who watched and who will be watching or listening. Keep coming back. We appreciate it. So, and Jerry, Missy, I'm sure we're gonna have you back soon for something else. So,
you can't escape us.
Thank you.
4:00 comes real early in the morning for work.
I understand. So, well, on that note, good night, everybody, and we'll see you next week.
Good night, all. Take care. Thank you.
See ya.
Bye.
Thank you.
Good night.